There is a veil drawn across the eyes of the world, a veil so subtle and ancient that most live their entire lives without ever noticing it. Yet to the awakened soul, it becomes unbearable. This veil is the illusion of separation, the great lie that we are merely flesh and bone, that the material world is the ultimate reality. And like all lies, it serves only to blind us from the lies within. When Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," he did not speak in metaphor. He was revealing the most guarded secret of every mystery school, every sacred text, every whispered truth, every whist not above us, but within us. But to reach this inner kingdom, one must pass through the inner crucible, the spiritual eye, often called the single eye, or the eye of the soul. This is the gateway hidden in plain sight. It is not found in churches or temples, nor in books or doctrines. It is found only in silence, in solitude, and in surrender, the single eye referenced in Matthew 6:22. "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," is the symbol of pure perception, the inner awareness that transcends duality. This eye does not see the world as fragmented or opposed, but as one is all whole. It is the lens through which the soul sees reality as it truly is, stripped of illusion, hierarchy, and form. To enter through this eye is to undergo a kind of death, for the ego cannot pass through. Only the soul, naked and silent, can. The mystics of all traditions have known this. The Sufis dance to dissolve the ego, the yogis meditate to quiet the mind, the Gnostics sought direct knowledge of the divine within. The true seeker does not follow a path laid out by others, they burn their own path through the wilderness of self, carving through pride, fear, desire, and falsehood. The single eye is narrow not in size, but in purity. It is a frequency that cannot be accessed by a fragmented heart. One must become whole to pass through it. One must become empty. In the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, a text once cast aside by orthodoxy, Jesus speaks not of sin as law-breaking, but as attachment to matter. This is the deeper Gnostic understanding. Sin is not moral failure, but spiritual amnesia. We forget who we are. We cling to the temporal. We serve the body while the soul starves. And thus we remain outside the gate, unable to enter, not because we are not permitted, but because we are still carrying the weight of what must be left behind. The inner eye, the gate within, is the meeting point between time and eternity. It is the still point in the turning world. To pass through it is to become still, to dissolve the mind into presence. This is why silence is sacred in all traditions. In silence, the soul begins to remember its native language, intuition, not thought, stillness. Not striving, presence, not possession. The eye opens in this silence, and through it we see not as we once did, but with the vision of the divine. In Christian mysticism, the concept of theosis, the process of becoming one with God, is not a reward given after death, but a calling to be fulfilled in life. The soul must ascend, but not upward, as the world imagines. Ascent is inward. It is the spiral descent into the heart, the long journey downward through shadows and pain and purification, until the soul reaches the holy center. There, in that inner sanctum, the true temples. There, the divine waits, not as a judge, but as our forgotten self. This is why the way is narrow, not because God is cruel, but because truth cannot be diluted. The eye is narrow because it cannot accommodate both the ego and the soul. One must die so the other may live. This is the cross. Not merely a symbol of suffering, but of transformation. The vertical being represents spirit, the horizontal matter. Where they meet is the heart, and at that junction lies the eye, the center through which resurrection begins. The false self cannot resurrect, only the surrendered self correct. The one who has laid down ambition, identity, and control, the one who no longer clings to past ones or future fears, the one who walks not to be seen, but to see. That one shall pass through. The narrow gate is not hidden, but ignored. It is not secret, but silent. It cannot be understood by intellect or grasped through reason. It is only seen when all seeing ceases. It is only opened when all striving ends. And so, paradoxically, the way forward is the way inward. The path of ascent is descent. The path to freedom begins in surrender. In the Tao Te Ching, Lo Tu writes, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." This letting go is the essence of the narrow gate. It is the renunciation of all that is not eternal. It is the sacred death before death. The soul's final unclothing is clothed in glory. In Buddhist teaching, this is called sunyata, Emptiness, not as void, but as potential. The empty vessel can be filled. The silent heart can hear. The narrow gate is not absence, but the portal to absence. The alchemists called this process solvet kogla, dissolve and rebuild. The ego must be dissolved. The soul must be rebuilt in divine form. The fire of suffering is the crucible, the ash is the crucible. From them, the phoenix rises, not the old self improved, but the true self revealed. Hermetic wisdom teaches, as above, so below, as within, so without. The gate is not somewhere else, it is mirrored in the salt. You are both the seeker and the gate. You are both the question and the answer. The key has always been in your heart. Let the world mock you for walking the narrow path. Let it call you foolish for turning away from power, fame, and pleasure. These are distractions, empty lights in a dream. The true light burns within. It is the flame of awakening, and it can only be seen through the single eye. The gate within. The gate of silence. The gate of return. Walk boldly, seeker. The path is narrow, but the destination is infinite. Now share this truth with those who are ready to see. And remember, the journey does not begin when you believe. It begins when you let go. There comes a point in every seeker's journey where words become insufficient. Language begins to fracture under the weight of what is being revealed. What lies beyond the narrow gate is not something the mind can grasp. It must be lived. It must be remembered, not as new knowledge, but as the reawakening of an ancient truth that was always there within. The gate is not an end, it is the beginning of a higher walk. A walk in silence, a walk in the fire, a walk in union. Beyond the gate, you do not find heaven as the world imagines it. You do not fads or clouds or chores. You find stillness, pure, unbearable stillness, a silence that exposes every remnant of your false self. It is not a silence of peace, but a silence of reckoning. Here the soul faces God, not a fake external judge, but as its own reflection. There is no hiding in this light. No ego survives it. What you once called you begins to unravel. Your name loses meaning. Your memories seem distant, like dreams from another life. You no longer seek validation, because you no longer identify with the self that needed it. You no longer fear death, because you have tasted a deeper life. In this place, time collapses. There is no past or future. Only now, only presence. Only the great, burning I am, and yet it is not empty. It is not lonely. It is full. So full that it feels as though your heart might break from the beauty of it. You begin to see all things as one. The trees, the sky, the stranger's face, your own breath, all become a single movement, a single symphony of God revealing God to God. There is no separation. There never was. The veil as Berva was, and what remains is what has always been oneness. You realize that hell was simply forgetting, that heaven was remembering, that salvation was not escape, but return, and the path back home, but inward, deeper and deeper, until there was no you, left to return, only the flame of the eternal, the flame of Christ within. You begin to weep, not from sorrow, but from the unbearable intimacy of it all. Every breath is sacred now, every moment a prayer. Every face you pass becomes a mirror, every stranger a fragment of yourself. This is what it means to walk as Christ, not to preach, not to embody, to be the presence in the room that awakens presence in others. You realize that even suffering had a purpose, that every wound was an opening, that every betrayal, every loss, every death you dalliance was a baptism, a sacred dismemberment. Each pain cracked you open until the light could no longer be contained. You don't curse the darkness anymore. You bow to it, because you now know the tomb was also the one. You no longer pray for escape. You pray for expansion. You ask not for ease, but for clarity, not for answers, but for union. You no longer seek to be right, but to be real, to be transparent, to be vessel for what is eternal. And slowly, the fire becomes familiar, not something to be feared, but something to be fed. You begin to live from the inside out. You no longer perform for the world. You no longer chase shadows who become like water, soft but unbreakable, flowing around obstacles but never losing direction. The world will not understand you. They will call you mad, they will say you've changed, and you have. You've died, and what stands in your place is not a better version of you. It is a truer version, one that no longer resists life but flows with it. One that no longer fears judgment because it has passed through the eye of it. one that no longer clings because it has become the wind. You realize that the true teaching of Christ was not belief, but embodiment. He did not come to create a religion. He came to awaken a kingdom, and that kingdom is within, not someday, not after death, now. Here, always, you become a mirror, a reminder, a doorway for others. But you do not preach loudly, you do not demand attention. At the gate you remain narrow. You speak only when the heart commands it. You move only when the Spirit breathes through you. You are not driven, you are guided. You become a witness to the sacred in the ordinary, a mystic in the marketplace, a prophet in silence. You see the divine not just in light, but in shadow, not just in joy, but in grief, not just in birth, but in death. Everything becomes a part of the dance. Everything is God wearing another mask, and in this awareness your life becomes liturgy. Every act a prayer, every breath incense, every gaze communion. You no longer search for miracles, you become one. You do not need approval in one, you not need proof. You know, and that knowing is enough. It burns like a quiet sun in your chest. It gives without asking. It sees without judging. It loves without limit. And when fear rises, as it still will, you no longer resist it. You see it as the shadow of love, a doorway into trust. You bow to it. You walk through it. Because you know there is nothing left to lose. Nothing real can be taken. Nothing eternal can die. The narrow gate did not bring you into a safer life. It brought you into a truer one. A life of piercing presence. A life of radical stillness. A life of holy fire. You walk through the world now like a ghost on fire. Prisoned, but unattached. Grounded, but weightless. You no longer seek the crowd. You no longer fear the void. You carry the kingdom inside you. And wherever you walk, that kingdom expands. You are not higher. You are simply empty enough to be full. Quiet enough to hear. Dead enough to finally live. This is the mystery of the narrow gate. That in losing all, you gain all. That in dying, you are reborn. That in surrender, you become sovereign. And now, beloved seeker, the path is yours. Not behind you, but within you. The fire does not end, it deepens. The silence does not close, it opens. The eye does not see for becomes you. Walk gently now. Speak only truth. Love without condition. And carry this light into every shadow. For you are no longer seeking the kingdom. You are carrying it. You are the gate now.